And welcome in to the Citadel Gray Line. This is the weekly show that we talk all things Bulldogs. I'm Jon Rawl, and I am joined by Andrew Miller of the Post and Courier. We're going to, on this week's show, look back at the loss to the Campbell Camels and ahead to the ETSU Bucks, the home opener, the SoCon opener for the Mighty Dogs. If you would like to get involved with our All Citadel program, it's very easy to do that. The number is 843-779-8496. Citadel Gray Line, a production of CRM Sports, and we are powered in part by two great sponsors, IPS Packaging and Automation. iPack.com is the website. And we're also brought to you by BigRedPalmetto.store. We have a winner from the previous week, our debut for 2022. This our 15th season of Citadel Gray Line, and we'll tell you about who the lucky winner is, and we'll have another Knob Knowledge question powered by BigRedPalmetto.store on this week's show. Let's go to the Post and Courier's beat writer for Citadel coverage. That is Andrew Miller. Hello, Andrew. Welcome in to the Gray Line.
Well, thanks for having me, John. I'm happy to be here.
Good to see that you were successfully able to swim out of Bowie's Creek.
Yeah, that was a night that I'm sure Bulldog fans would soon like to forget. But, for an opening game, there's so many question marks going into any season opener. And I thought some were answered and some they're still out there. But, yeah, it's Campbell is not as nearly as scenic as the Holy City here is. No doubt.
Well, we're going to do our best to maybe fix that problem, Andrew, as we go forward. We're going to hear from the head coach of the Bulldog football team, Brent Thompson. He held his weekly presser on Monday, Labor Day Monday this week, and Andrew was there. We'll get Andrew's take on Brent Thompson, the bearded Brent Thompson. He actually looks more than just like a little boy these days, because I'll tell you what, I think Brent's in his 40s. To his credit, he's got that youthful look still about him, but now with the beard, he looks a little older. Looks like he could be in his 20s, but we're going to see Brent Thompson a little later. He covered a lot of questions fired on him by the media at media days here this week, or the media day that the Bulldog football team has in season. But the Citadel does fall. It wasn't really that close for most of this game, as Campbell seemed to be a step above, a step ahead, and just a lot bigger team out there.
Yeah, I thought so. They were, this is the first FCS game I've seen in a number of years. But to me, Campbell looked like a very big, very athletic, very fast FCS team. Mike Minter's done a great job of getting that collection of athletes there. I thought for the most part they were pretty disciplined, especially defensively. They did have a lot of grad transfers, a lot like the Citadel. They were an older team, and I think that really paid off Thursday night up in Bowie's Creek.
All right, trying to adjust the microphone here. That technical stuff. We got a lot of moving parts here at Citadel Gray Line, so we're trying to do our best to sound and look as good as we possibly can. But again, if you want to get involved, we've given you the number. Hey, you also, if you're watching us on our Facebook page, feel free to comment right now. If you've got a question about the Dogs, Andrew, hopefully we'll be able to answer. If not, he'll do his best right here to get your questions answered on Citadel Gray Line. One of the kind of neat things. And I want to go ahead and say we're doing this show today on a Tuesday. I have to travel on Wednesday. We normally do this show around 11 Eastern on Wednesdays, but because of my travel schedule that's popped up, we're having to go a day early, a hurry-up formation, if you will, here on this week's show. So I apologize if all of you had Wednesdays already taken the time off, 11 o'clock, maybe early lunch to watch our show. We're doing it a little bit early this week, and I do apologize. That won't be the norm going forward. Okay, so questions are certainly welcome here. One of the things that seemed a little bit out of sync was that Bulldog offense. And what was your take of what you saw, and then what Brent Thompson said at his weekly presser, Andrew?
Well, I thought the first two drives were exactly what the Citadel needed to do. They needed to control the tempo. They needed to control the clock. They needed to move the ball methodically down the field. I thought they did that on those first two drives. If you look at it, there were 6 total plays. They ate up more than 16 minutes of clock. I mean, that's an entire quarter. I mean, Campbell had the ball for less than a minute, 48 seconds in the second quarter. That just shows you how much the Citadel dominated the ball and they were able to move it. But a penalty here, an injury there, misassignment on the perimeter blocking wise, and they weren't able to put the ball in the end zone. And those drives are great, but if you don't score on them or if you don't score touchdowns on them, that's going to leave you a little hamstrung. And I thought they did not do it. The Citadel did not do a very good job of finishing off their drives, those first two drives, which I thought were really good drives. They established their A back. What we would call in the olden days the fullback when Charlie Taft was running his wishbone offense. I thought for the most part they did exactly what they wanted to do offensively, but they just didn't finish the drive. And Brent Thompson talked about that at Monday's press conference, that there are a few little things, some perimeter blocking, some false start penalties that kind of got them behind the sticks, got them behind schedule, and they weren't able to capitalize on that and had to settle for a field goal in their first possession, and then didn't get that touchdown until late in the game when really it already been decided. But I give Campbell a lot of credit. They were not only big and athletic, they were pretty disciplined in their defense. And then when the Bulldogs were able to get the ball on the perimeter, they had enough team speed to negate those really large chunk plays that the Citadel kind of relies on when they get the ball on the perimeter. So I thought Campbell did a really good job of being disciplined, and then they had that athleticism to run the Bulldogs down on those wide plays that, again, usually result in big plays for them.
Final score in this one, it was a 29-10 Fighting Camels victory there in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. And as you mentioned, Tyler Cherry, the lone touchdown for the Dogs in this one. This one came with the game almost over. 2:53 was left in the fourth quarter when Cherry, the sophomore from the upstate, hauled in, not a run, but a 19-yard pass from Peyton Derrick. So who would have seen that one coming? The only touchdown for the Citadel was a pass play, 19 yards, nice pass play at that. Other points came from a Colby Kinder field goal of 33 yards early in the ball game. First quarter was when that was scored. But Tyler Cherry, I think he wears number 88 out there. He seems to be a very promising kid. I know his high school team won a state championship up around the Easley area when he was coming out of high school, and now maybe he could bring some of that championship mentality to Brent Thompson's team.
Yeah, runs really good routes, got good speed, good hands. He's not quite a Raleigh Webb kind of impact, a big play guy like that, but I think he's going to see a lot of one-on-one coverage in the secondary, and he's going to be, there are going to be opportunities for him to make big plays. And I thought he made a really nice catch and a really nice throw from Peyton Derrick for the touchdown in the fourth quarter. Andrew,
I think he's listed as a wide receiver, but his kind of size kind of looks more like a traditional tight end. And that tight end position, really, the Citadel really hasn't utilized a tight end, at least going back to my memory of 2015 when there was a Charleston area, I believe he played at Wando guy who was a pretty good little tight end, didn't get a lot of passes, but boy, he hauled in a big one against the Gamecocks back in 2015. I forgot his name.
Andrew Glover, is that who we're talking about?
It might be. It might be.
Yeah, he's from Wando, and he was a big kid.
What'd you call him?
Andrew Glover.
The Ace?
The Ace, yeah. No, Andrew Glover, yeah. I think he was a tight end. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think he played in Europe or something like that. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, Andrew Glover. I apologize, Andrew. In fact, I think one of the funny stories about him was, I think it was Andrew, whenever former athletic director Jim Center came to Citadel for an interview. He was walking on campus prior to his interview, and some cadet just started talking to him, and it turned out I think it was Andrew Glover, and that made a big impression on Center. And whenever he saw that a kid, a football player, had that much hospitality and charisma, then that made quite an impression. Of course, Center did a heck of a job as athletic director, moving on to UTEP after he left the Citadel. But yes, the tight end position, something that maybe not be it may not be listed for one Tyler Cherry, but he looks like a very good talent out there. But the running back situation, of course, when you're running an option offense, going inside the numbers, the not getting a offensive touchdown through the ground seems to be a very, very daunting maybe future ahead for Citadel football. And then the fact that they slowly on the defensive side let Campbell get points in every quarter. 17 first half points by the Camels, and then they had 2 6-point quarters in both the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that if you look at the statistics, and I know what people say about statistics, but Campbell outrushed Citadel, and how many times is that going to happen during the year? I bet not too many times. So that just shows you that I thought the Campbell offensive line did a really good job. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They were able to open up holes for their running backs. They were able to get chunk plays from their running game, which kind of set up the passing game as well. I thought that the first half, the Citadel really was back on their heels defensively. They were kind of reacting instead of being aggressive and kind of forcing the play. They're, again, we keep coming back to it, the Campbell's athleticism and size were, I thought, a real issue for them offensively against the Citadel defense. But I thought the second half, the Bulldogs did a much better job. They made some adjustments and some corrections to some mental mistakes they were making in the first half, and I thought the defense in the second played much better, and at least gave the Citadel a chance to be in that game. If we see that Citadel defense in the second half, against ETSU this week, I think they'll have a much better chance of winning the game.
And the Buccaneers, the defending SoCon champions, are Charleston bound. They'll be the home opener for Brent Thompson's Battling Cadets here this weekend. We're going to talk about that game in detail as we go through today's show. Again, hit us up on our text line. It's at 843-779-8496. If you have a question or comment for Andrew about Citadel sports, we would love to hear from you right here on the Gray Line. But why don't we do this, Andrew? Let's hear from the head coach, his opening statement, if you will, from this week's press conference at Johnson Hagood Stadium. Here is the head coach of Citadel football, Brent Thompson, right here on Citadel Gray Line.
The bottom line is this is, I said it Saturday after the game. I'll reiterate it again, and I don't even know. I had to explain it again to my guys, and I think I've got to do a better job of coaching my guys up on this as well, because we're not quite getting it. We're not playing football on our terms right now. We're not dictating the game. We're not dictating the pace of the game. We show signs of doing a lot of things really well. We drove the ball for the first 2 drives extremely well, but we got 3 points out of it. We just penalties, missed assignments, those kind of things haunt us and creep up on us. Campbell's a very good football team. They're fast, they're athletic, they're big, they're strong. But that doesn't mean that they're unbeatable. It just means that we've got to play a certain way. And that's not just this week, that's next week, that's the week after that. That's the way that you got to win here. And unfortunately, we didn't do that last week. So I've got to impart on my guys every single day from here on for the rest of the season that, hey, penalties, turnovers, time of possession, all those things are going to really start to make a difference. You look at us in the second half, defense plays well. We give them the ball 2 times inside the 50. They get 6 points out of it. I thought that's what we need to do to win. That's playing Citadel football. That's being opportunistic on our end. We're just not scoring enough, not driving the ball enough, not staying out of the penalties. If we can do those things, we'll be just fine.
Again, that was head coach Brent Thompson this week at the press conference, talking about the loss to Campbell as the Citadel fell in week 1, 29-10. Andrew Miller of the Post and Courier is on board with me here. This is Citadel Gray Line, a production of CRM Sports, and we want to, again, look at the ETSU game, but one of the things going into this one, Andrew, was the new faces, and we saw the Citadel with a new quarterback after the off-season transfer of last year's starting quarterback. Now we have Peyton Derrick coming in, the transfer from Wofford, also a transfer from Appalachian State. And I'm not a big fan of the one-and-dones. Are we the new Kentucky of college football, Kentucky basketball of college football? Not a fan of that, but I guess in some ways this team was left without too many choices, with Adams choosing to leave the program and other faces departing in the off-season. And I know this week at the presser, I know that Peyton Derrick a Conway native stood up, talked about a little bit about his background, and he's the Zeb Noland of 2022. If you follow Gamecock football, he's kind of following that same path, Andrew.
Yeah, he sure is. And this was the first opportunity we got to talk to Peyton. Yeah, both quarterbacks, he and Ahmad Green, were kind of off limits to the media during the preseason. So first chance to talk to him, a very personable young man. I thought he played pretty well for his first start in a new offense on the road against a pretty good defensive football team. Brent Thompson said that he got him out of he had made some checks, some audible calls, got him out of some bad plays, corrected some protection stuff up front. Had a couple interceptions. I don't think one was his fault. I don't think the other one was his fault. I thought overall played, okay. I would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive running the football. I think Brent Thompson wants to see him be a little bit more aggressive when he has those opportunities to keep it on some of those perimeter plays. But, again, overall, managing the game, making the calls, getting them out of bad plays. I thought he had a pretty good game overall. Again, the Citadel's just got to find a way to finish off drives with touchdowns instead of field goals.
I heard you mention a quarterback, and I want to make sure I don't mess it up. What is the succession plan for quarterbacks?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Who's the second string? Who's the third string? Do we know that?
As far as I know, it's Ahmad Green is going to be the second. Is going to be the backup. He had, from what I've been told by people from the coaching staff, he had some issues with his center quarterback exchange, and that's what really put Peyton over the top as far as the starter goes. But they're still very high on him. They think he's going to be their quarterback of the future. He learned, he got all those reps in the spring, so he's got that going for him. He knows the offense, and I expect that. I think we'll see him from time to time this season as well, because he gives them, a little bit more athleticism at the quarterback position and a little bit more of a running threat.
Okay. But right now, you predicted last week that Peyton Derrick would be the quarterback heading into that Campbell game.
Yes. Yeah. All indications were, especially after the first scrimmage that I saw, that he was the clear-cut starter. And again, some people on the coaching staff mentioned that to me, that it really wasn't even an issue anymore that Peyton Derrick was going to be the starter.
And again, this is a graduate transfer that has come in to the program. And if you weren't with us last week and you're like, golly, Peyton Derrick, that name seems eerily familiar. Well, he was Wofford's quarterback last year, and in a game that the Citadel hosted against Wofford back in November of last year, the Citadel won in overtime over Wofford 45-44, and I think I've got some statistics on that one. In that game that the Citadel, which I think is on a 2-game win streak over Wofford, by the way, which is pretty amazing after Wofford had such a huge streak against El Cid for so long. In that game against the Citadel last year, Peyton Derrick was 7-12 for 181 yards passing, threw for 4 touchdowns, including a 75-yarder. What's that?
I said tied a school record with that for the 4 passing touchdowns.
Wow. And then on the ground, he rushed for 57 yards and a touchdown with his feet. But the good guys won that one last year. And I know he talked a little bit about the irony of now suiting up for the Citadel. And the crazy story is Zeb Noland already wrote a book about how to transfer in as a possible graduate assistant, and then deciding, or in this case with Peyton Derrick, the team saying, hey, we think you might be a good option for us at quarterback. And it's really a repeat of the Zeb Noland story.
It is kind of. And when he talked about it yesterday, he said he sent resumes and emails out to everybody, including Nick Saban. And he came down to the Citadel for a practice and got to talk to some of the guys. And I don't think he talked to Brent Thompson that day during that spring practice, but he dropped off his resume. And one of the things on his resume was that he still had a year of eligibility left, and he didn't think he was going to play, but he just wanted to put it there just in case that maybe got him, the job as a graduate assistant coach. And he said he was driving back after that practice. He got him out to Georgetown. It's about halfway between here and Conway. and he got a call from Brent Thompson, and the rest, as we say, is history. Yeah, but very aware of the Zeb Nolan, history with him, and having been in a similar position with the Gamecocks last year, and hopefully he can get a couple of wins here for the Bulldogs like Zeb did for the Gamecocks.
What other new faces, including graduate transfers, saw the field in Campbell or at Campbell?
Well, we had a true freshman offensive lineman, and excuse me, I'm gonna have to check the chart for him. He was I don't know if he played left guard or if he played right guard, but Sawyer Whitman, a true freshman, when the starting center went down, Mike Bartolucci. He went down with an injury, and then they did some shuffling around, and then Sawyer Whitman got in the game, and he played a pretty good most of the second half, almost all the second half. And if Mike can't go at center this week against ETSU, Sawyer will get his first start of the year, and I think he's from the upstate. I want to say he's from Gaffney, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And then some of the other guys, like one of the guys that they talk a lot about, Trayvon Wallace. Now he's going to have to play a lot. He's going to be the starter. They're probably going to move Chris Beverly, to strong safety because Wilson Hendrick, he's out for the year with a broken leg.
Oh man, he was hurt in the game, right?
Yeah, he was the one that they paused the game for, and they came out with an air cast. Broken ankle. I don't want to. It's a broken lower extremity. That's all we can say. So, Chris Beverly moved over to strong safety, and then Trayvon Wallace will become the starter at free safety. So we saw him a lot, and those are the two guys that got out there that we didn't see a whole lot of last year that played a lot.
Tough loss there. I think the young man was a leading tackler on last year's team.
Yeah, and the second he had 7 tackles in the opener against Campbell. So obviously a guy who's around the football, and he'll be missed back there.
Tough loss there. But he will be XMD in the Corps Cadets, so that's not always the worst scenario. We're going to talk about ETSU. Let me first, everybody, tell you all about IPS Packaging and Automation, as they are a great partner here on Citadel Gray Line. IPS Packaging and Automation out of the Greenville area. They've been a name you can trust since 1976. They've been providing manufacturers and e-commerce companies with the very best packaging products and automation in the industry. IPS Packaging and Automation offers a complete line of packaging products, from stretch films and 3M tapes to corrugated boxes, strapping, and equipment. IPS Packaging and Automation analyzes and streamlines current methods to improve your packaging process. Hey, pick up that phone and give them a call. 800-277-7007. I say again, 800-277-7007. And learn all about IPS Packaging and Automation, or go to their website, ipack.com. That's ipack.com. IPS Packaging and Automation is a proud supporter of Citadel Athletics, and we sure appreciate what they do right here each and every week by being a proud presenter of Citadel Gray Line. All right, any last notes on the Campbell loss before we turn it over to our ETSU coverage, Andrew?
I think, again, on the road, first game, what Coach Brent Thompson talked about was they got to play on their terms. And I thought, really, for the first quarter and a half, they did a decent job, especially offensively, of controlling the ball and making, doing what they needed to do with the control of the ball away from the offense. But they've just got to do a better job of finishing off drives. I mean, that really is the bottom line. They have to score touchdowns and not field goals if they're going to be successful this season. And I think that's going to be a point of emphasis going into this ETSU game.
All right, looking forward to it. LCID moves on now, going to the friendly confines of Johnson Hagood Stadium for this week's battle against the defending SoCon champion ETSU, a program that did not even exist on the gridiron some 6 years ago, and now they ride into Johnson Hagood Stadium, conference champions. So great job there. They have had, I believe, didn't Randy Sanders leave? Don't they have a coaching change there in Johnson City?
I believe so, yes. I think it was the offensive coordinator at Furman, whose name now escapes me.
Okay.
But The offense that they run there is very similar to a little bit of what they used to do last year at ETSU and what they've done at the Citadel. Obviously, just steamrolled Morris Hill over the weekend. I think they beat them 44-7 or something like that. They outscored them 35-0, I believe, and over the first two quarters. So really, it wasn't very much of a game. And Morris Hill is usually a pretty good Division II team, so a mark that the ETSU is going to be right up there in going, battling for that Southern Conference title again this year.
Yep. All right. Well, it'll be the home opener, and a lot of people excited about the Dogs getting back to their dog pound, if you will, back to the boneyard for game number one at home of only 5 home games this year. So not very many to choose from. Kind of the way the schedule sets up this year. The Dogs will be going into this one, I assume, as underdogs, no pun intended, against a team like we saw that won the conference last year, and we've got a lot of questions on our play. What, in your opinion, what does the Citadel need to do with a explosive ETSU team coming in to at least make this game a game and possibly walk out victors?
Well, they need to clean up their mistakes offensively. And again, if they have these long drives like they did against Campbell, again, finish them off with touchdowns and not field goals. They got to limit the ETSU chunk plays offensively. The Citadel defense has got to keep things in front of them, which again was a point of emphasis during the preseason, keeping everything in front of them, not giving up the big plays. If the Citadel defense could play like they did in the second half against Campbell through the entire 60 minutes against ETSU, I think they have a good chance of kind of limiting those explosive plays that ETSU has been known for the last couple of seasons. Again, and then they got to finish off drives. They can't have these penalties. They can't have these turnovers. They've got to do a better job of blocking on the perimeter. Like they did a little bit better job of that in the second half than they did the first half, but still, they got to eliminate these kind of mental mistakes. When I asked Brett Thompson about this on Monday, he said he thinks it's more mental than physical. So I think that's good news for the Bulldogs, because it's physical. There's really not much you can do about it. You're just physically outmatched. You've got a long afternoon ahead of you. So if they can clean things up offensively, they can limit the explosive plays defensively. I think the Citadel will be in for a good game on Saturday. And, I think playing in front of their home crowd, I think is going to be an added benefit as well. I mean, I think you always play better in front of your home fans.
What other questions were you able to ask the coach on Monday, Andrew?
Most of them, they were about Peyton Derrick and how he had managed the game and how he'd kind of come into, how they kind of gotten on his radar, and then how he'd gotten to go from a graduate assistant to a player. Those are the main things. And one of the things that Brent Thompson talked about that I'm going to write about on Saturday, so I don't want to give it all away, is they want to play the game on their terms. And that's kind of what I've been really talking about all show, is that, again, finishing off drives, being methodical like they were offensively in those first 2 drives, but finish those off, and then keep everything in front of them defensively and make ETSU earn every yard and every point. Again, that's the formula for success for the Citadel, really for any football team, but for the Citadel especially because of the way that they play. They have to play it on their terms, and if they can do those things, then I think they have a good chance of beating ETSU.
So what was it like to be at a presser there at the friendly confines of Johnson Hagood Stadium, and a guy named Jeff Hartzell not there, I guess, in the audience asking questions?
For me, I've done this for 31 years, been a sports writer, covered Clemson, covered South Carolina, covered the Carolina Panthers. So for me, it was just, I did the Citadel, again, back when Charlie Taft was the head coach, and Don Powers. Don Powers' first year, and I think the last 4 years that Charlie was there. So it was just like kind of going back home for me. But one of the funniest things is ETSU. I remember going up there to the Buck Dome, and I don't think they play indoors anymore. I think they got a new stadium up there.
Yeah, they do.
But it was so weird. I remember Charlie warning me about the press box is like, actually have a great press box as far as where it's located back in the Buck Dome. You're right at the 50-yard line. You're about 25 rows up, so you got great viewing angles of the entire field. The problem was that back then ETSU wasn't really very good at football, so you'd have only a couple thousand fans there, and you could hear almost everything that the coaches were saying, even on the other sideline. So I could hear Charlie and his assistant coaches really getting after the players. And I remember him coming to me at the post-game press conference after that, and he goes, please don't reprint any of what I was saying on the sideline to the players. Please do not put that in the paper. And I remember, because I could hear vividly, because I guess the acoustics of the place, you really couldn't hear what the Bucks were saying, and the ETSU players and coaches were saying, because they were right underneath you. But because Charlie and the Bulldogs were on the other side of the field, you could hear everything, and I mean everything they said. I was thinking that if ETSU was smart, they would have put a coach upstairs, sitting right next to me. You could hear everything they were saying to him. So, but yeah, it was a weird place to watch a game. But I'll be interested to go back there next year if we go on the road, and I'd be interested to see what their new stadium looks like.
Yeah, I actually made my first trip to Johnson City this past football season, 2021, and went to the Citadel ETSU game. And they have a very nice campus, and to their credit, they had a lot of fans. Of course, they were inching their way to a SoCon title by the time mid-October rolled around and the Citadel came in there, and ETSU won that one pretty easily. But a very scenic setting there in Johnson City, and good to have them back at the conference. You remember, they kind of got kicked out of the SoCon when they dropped football.
Right.
But when they brought it back, the Citadel welcomed them with open arms, or the SoCon rather, welcomed them in with open arms, and they've been so far a very, very good addition in addition to what they're doing on the basketball court and more.
Yeah,
and of course, there's that historic tie between the Citadel and ETSU when you talk about the Buck Dome with the Mark Bonacani injury that happened there in the 1985 or 86 football season.
The ETSU back in the 90s, the mid-90s when I was covering, were really known more for basketball than football. But yeah, tragic incident there with Mark Bonacani. But I think talking about somebody who has just recovered and thrived with and taking advantage of the opportunities he's gotten to spread the word. I think he's done a fabulous job of kind of getting the word out about ways to make tackles and ways not to make tackles.
Absolutely.
He's an inspiration. Absolutely.
And he historically has come back at least to one football game in the last few years, and often it would be for the ETSU game if that was on the schedule at home. So there's a chance Mark Bonacani could be around this weekend. Look for him if you see him, because he's a Bulldog, and he's got his number retired. He's got a ring and more. So a great dog of the Tom Moore era of Citadel football. Hey, let's talk about winners. Don't you like winners?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Hayes Lothian was a winner because BigRedPalmetto.store in IPS Packaging helped present this show. And each week here on the program, we have Knob Knowledge, where you get to text your guess right there to that number, 843-779-8496. And Hayes correctly answered our question of the amount of yards that Tyler Renew reeled off in the game against the Mercer Bears in the 2016 season. It was the second play from scrimmage in that season opener, a season that the Citadel went on to win 10 straight, won the Southern Conference, did not lose a single game in SoCon play, and had a fantastic year. The last SoCon title the Citadel football team had was during that 2016 season. But the question was, how many yards was Tyler Renew's second run, the second play from scrimmage that Renew ran up the middle? How long was that touchdown? And Hayes Lothian correctly guessed 70 yards. So we've got a $25 gift certificate headed to Hayes, and we really appreciate his watching the show each week and the great answer. And what that means is we got to ask another question here on this week's Citadel Gray Line. And we're going to turn our attention this week to another great Citadel football player. And lo and behold, who would have ever thought that in the 21st century, the greatest Citadel player who's ever gone on to play in the NFL would be a wide receiver. But that's what we've got. And this weekend, come Sunday afternoon at Bank of America Stadium, South Carolina native and Citadel graduate Andre Roberts will be donning the Panthers uniform and going out there and facing off against the Cleveland Browns in the NFL opener of the Carolina Panthers. And this now marks the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th NFL team Andre Roberts has been on since he started in the league in 2010. So an Andre Roberts related question that we're going to be asking here today is, text me at 843-779-8496 what Andre Roberts, Cadet Andre Roberts, studied while at the Citadel. What did he get his degree in? And do you know the answer? Don't tell me if you do, Andrew.
I do not, no.
Okay. Yes. Tell me what his degree is in. Yeah, I don't think it was on wide receiver play. And if you know that answer, we will get you a $25 gift certificate from Big Red Palmetto .store. So very easy. Citadel class of 2010, Andre Roberts, looking forward to his playing for the Panthers this year, and looking forward to giving away $25 to Big Red Palmetto .store, which they have amazing items that you can go check out anytime. I've just done it this weekend. I've got my little wish list of things I want Santa to bring me. You know, we're not but a couple of months away from that. And then they got hats, they got blankets, they got great polos, they got some class-specific items for Big Red Palmetto .store. Check it out. And they've got the new logo, the Sea Star logo. They got that Bulldog logo that's the knockoff of Sanford's logo. They got the jumping Bulldog of the 80s. They got Spike. They got a lot of stuff on there. It's really, really a great website. Check it out, bigredpalmetto.store. Okay, so we've got our trivia question asked now. Fire away if you know that. Your keys to victory this weekend against ETSU, Andrew.
Well, don't turn the ball over. Don't get crucial penalties that put you behind the sticks. Keep everything in front of you. If when you're on defense, don't allow the big explosive plays like the Bulldogs did to Campbell during the first half. And then finish off your drives. Finish off your drives with touchdowns and not field goals. And I think that the Bulldogs will come away with victory.
All right. And we didn't talk a whole lot about defense in our recap of Campbell, but if you could go out there and fix one thing, what would that be, Andrew?
Well, I'd like to see them be get a little bit more pressure, dial up some more blitzes, putting pressure on the Campbell quarterback, which they did a lot better job, I thought, of in the second half than in the first half, and controlling the line of scrimmage more. We did see more defensive players playing. I think they had 18 guys play on defense, if my stats are correct, and that's a big number when you think about the depth that the Citadel can create defensively. Obviously, they lose Wilson at the free safety spot. And that's a big hole to fill, but I thought that was an encouraging sign that you got that many guys in there. Really wasn't much of a drop-off in quality out there. But, again, keeping those plays in front of you and getting a little bit more pressure on the quarterback in passing situations, I'd like to see a little bit more of that.
He wants it, so let's make it happen, y'all. Andrew Miller right here, our Post and Courier insider on Citadel Gray Line, and let's bring home a victory and get to 1-0. And if the Dogs can get the victory here against ETSU, that Campbell game will be flushed away, and the Dogs will be off to a 1-0 start in SoCon play, which is really kind of what it's all about anyway, is trying to first get that conference title under your belt. Andrew, before we sign off, any other notes going on in Citadel athletics that we need to be aware of?
Nothing. Pretty quiet week. I think that's probably because the Labor Day weekend, and they had they had that little extra time to prepare for the ETSU game, which, again, I think will help them down the road. And it might hurt ETSU because they didn't have that full summer. I mean, one of the things that Campbell was able to do, had an entire really summer and preseason to prepare for that option attack. And when you only got 3 or 4 days, I think that's going to make a difference. But other than that, a pretty quiet week there in downtown Charleston, which I think is the way the coaches like it.
All right. And again, in downtown Charleston is where you'll find the headquarters of one Post and Courier. Go to postandcourier.com and check out the great writing that Andrew's doing about the Dogs, but the other local news and statewide news that they have at postandcourier.com. It is a tremendous website. A Pulitzer-winning newspaper is the Post and Courier, and we're fortunate in Citadel World to have Andrew Miller as our Bulldog beat writer, and he's on the beat each and every day. You're turning out, on average, besides the game coverage, how many feature stories are you doing on the Citadel Sports throughout a given week?
I do something on the press conference. I'll have a story this week on Peyton Derrick. Should run Thursday or Friday. Not sure what Jeff's got in store for that. Then I'll have an advancer for the ETSU game. So I'm 3 stories plus a game story, so 4 stories every week at least, minimum on the Citadel.
Yeah, and great photos as well. I mean, I'll say it. I said it last week. I'll repeat it. We're very fortunate for an FCS team to have the kind of coverage we've got coming from our local newspaper and the other media outlets that cover it. Heck, even this show right here, we do our small part to keep Citadel athletics and the Citadel in general out in the atmosphere, so people don't completely forget about us and they know what's going on. Andrew, what's the best way for people to follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at @apmiller_@PNC. That's really the best way to follow me. I do updates during the game throughout. Email me, apmiller@postingcourier.com. I always answer. I answer every single email that anybody sends me.
Well, that's pretty darn neat. Well, we will put this ETSU game into our docket, see how things go out, and then after ETSU, it's right back on the road, another SoCon game at Mercer, and we'll be on here next week to kind of walk you through that one and get you ready for all of the Bulldog fun right here on Citadel Gray Line. Andrew, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again for the early start this week. We'll be back at our normal Wednesday, 11 Eastern time when we go live on Facebook Live. And please go to our Facebook page. If you're new and someone shared this with you, please go to our Facebook page, Citadel Gray Line, and like it so you'll get the automatic notices when we have stories up and or we'll have our live show being produced weekly throughout the football season. That's our way of kind of staying on top of Bulldog sports. Andrew, have a very great week and enjoy your home game.
Thanks a lot, John. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate all of you again for being a part of Citadel Gray Line. We will see y'all right back here next week. Thanks for tuning in.